Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help. And King of Floors, your vinyl, laminate, and engineered flooring superstore.
It is Wednesday with a nod to Passant Motors. All of our guests today, sponsored by the O's marketing team at Royal LePage, the go-to source for all your Central Vancouver Island real estate needs. Find out more at wearerealestate.com. I've been looking up stories on Dave Hodge, and my memory has come to the rescue here. I couldn't find anything on the internet, but I think earlier that day, CBC had cut away from a big curling event. I can't remember if it was the Briar.
So they were going back to the curling.
Well, no. Earlier in the day they had cut short a curling event, and then they did what they did in that was the Habs and Flyers games. They cut away, or they couldn't go to that as well. So it all added up, and Dave flipped his pen, and Ron McLean got himself a pretty good gig. All right, let's bring in Jeff Paterson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, guys, and I've had a good chuckle at that Dave Hodge clip. I've seen it many times, hadn't seen it for a while. The disdain with which he signs off is incredible. So you provided me one of many good laughs, as you guys always do. And I have to say, too, I hear all this wedding talk. 20th anniversary today. My wife, I fooled her all these years. 20 years today.
She deserves a medal.
Seriously, I know. Instead, she's getting a thank you on Donnie and Dolly. That's an even better.
Yeah, what could be better? well, congrats to you and Shannon.
She's a huge fan of yours, not mine so much, but I'm sure it'll mean the world to her.
Well, again, congrats, Jeff, to both you and Shannon. Hey, when you watch these playoffs, how far away do you think the Canucks are from doing something like, say, the Leafs are doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes back to having this lineup that can absorb injuries. You know, like, look, John Tavares is out of the lineup. Nick Foligno's out of the lineup right now, and they're not skipping a beat. And I'm not surprised. I mean, I picked them to beat Montreal. I guess if I'm surprised, it's sort of how disinterested the Habs look and feel in this series. But, you know, depth is so important, and we've said this repeatedly about the Vancouver Canucks. And you know, the general manager admitted it on Friday at his year-end press conference that they have to get better. And so that's, for me, you know, they've got opportunities. They've got some different avenues here in the summertime. How do they go about their business? And let's see what they can do to beef up the depth. Because, look, it hasn't been Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. Like, they have had their moments in this series, and they're going to be heard from again as the series goes along. But, you know, the Oilers are an example of that, too. I mean, Edmonton scored 8 goals, and people can point at McDavid and Draisaitl. Draisaitl was in on 5 of them, and McDavid was in on half of them. So I don't think that it was necessarily, you know, their fault. Did they need them to be game breakers? 3 overtimes. You would have thought that somewhere along the line that maybe that duo would team up to score a game breaker and a game winner, and instead it's McDavid turning the puck over on the one that led to the series clincher. But yeah, I think it's always a reminder, Don, when you watch these teams that, you know, they've got the depth, they've got star power, and there's going to be nights where your stars lead the way, but so often in playoff hockey, the stars kind of cancel out, the, you know, team's game plan for those guys, and then it's players lower in the lineup that step up, and that, you know, the Canucks were just missing those types of players. They've got the core to build around. I think most people agree with that, and now the question is, how can they support them? And, you know, with very little cap flexibility this summer, you know, really what kind of job can they do to go out into the market and find players that can step in and help the Canucks next season? So I'll give management every opportunity to make that happen, but that's on them. And Jim himself stated, like, you know, I think the first step is recognizing the issue, and the second is going about trying to find some ways to help this hockey club.
We had you on, Jeff, I believe, on Friday before the Benning Green press conference. What was your reaction when you heard Jim Benning say that his team, his organization, would explore, he said explore trades and free agency, but the eyebrow raiser was exploring buyouts?
Yeah, and I really wish, just for the theater of the moment, that he had, like, pulled out a bullhorn and, you know, said that, like, into a megaphone, just to add a little bit of excitement to the proceedings, because that did. I mean, that was a takeaway for everybody, I think, to hear him say that. We know that a year ago that it felt like the taps were cut off, and he just didn't have that option available to him. So, I think it's encouraging, whether it was Jim Benning saying it, whether it was Francesco Aquilini in his letter that was posted that morning as well. He said he's going to give management every available resource to get the job done. So, that's good that they've got the green light now. They've got some decisions to make, because buyouts are one thing, but, they have to make sure that it makes sense for the hockey club. Like a Jake Virtanen buyout makes sense on a couple of levels. Like, I think it's just time to split with Jake, and obviously Jake's got other issues that he has to deal with. But from the Canucks, business moves forward here, and I think the time has come. I mean, it's so unfortunate that this is likely to be how it ends for Jake Virtanen as a Canuck, is a buyout. But, it's only a third of the salary on the books because of the age that he's at. The other buyout candidates, and we all scream, buyout Louis or buyout Roussel or Beagle, but you have to recognize that the way their contracts are structured, that really there isn't a massive cost savings compared to burying them in the minors for the final year of their deal. And a guy like Braden Holtby, it's crazy to think that a year after signing him, structuring his deal the way it was, now there's this idea that maybe that's the best way out. You have to remember, too, that like Jim himself in that midseason press conference talked about 2 years, and he was referencing getting out from under all these contracts that have hamstrung him. Now, if you're buying out a guy like Braden Holtby, you're pushing money to the following year. So, which is it? Do you want a clear runway with as much cap space as possible in the year after this one, or is it about trying to find cost savings so that you can squeak into the playoffs this coming season, but it might be at the expense of really doing some things when you have the cap space and the room to move? So, look, these are bad contracts that have hampered the hockey club. We know all of that. I think the front office has acknowledged that, but we'll see how it goes. I do expect that there will be at least one buyout. Beyond that, we'll have to see, because again, it's got to make sense for the hockey club in terms of getting the cost savings and the flexibility to then take that money and do other things with it that can help your hockey club get better on the ice.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm going to tell you right now, what they do with Braden Holtby is going to be very interesting. You have the buyout option, you got the Seattle option, you got the trade option. He's got $5.7 million in real cash money. Can they get that off the books? What's going to happen? It's going to be interesting what happens with Braden Holtby. I can't find it.
Just before you move on there, Rick, too, think, like, if you were to buy out Braden Holtby, and again, you're getting a cost savings, but you're pushing some money down the road, but you also need somebody to be the backup. Yeah. Like, I don't think Mikey DiPietro after basically a lost year, so then you're having to go out into the market and find probably a veteran free agent. He wouldn't cost you a lot, but you have to factor that in, that you're paying somebody to play the position that you're paying Holtby to no longer play for your hockey club.
Yeah, you could get a backup for under $1 million, Jeff. You really can. We'll see what happens with Holtby. It's going to be very interesting. I can't find anyone that tells me the Sedin twins aren't going to join the organization at some point. I think in a perfect world, they'd like to announce the coaching staff and the Sedins in the next, few days anyways. But what are your thoughts on the Sedin twins? We had Craig Button on yesterday talking about them. How would they even fit, Jeff, in your eyes?
Yeah, and I saw Craig on the show because I don't miss an episode.
There you go. Thank you.
And I agree. Like, I've got all the time in the world for Daniel and Henrik, and we saw, like, their hockey IQ is off the charts, and I think if they put their minds to being hockey executives, that it wouldn't take them that long to absorb a lot of the information that they need. But they're coming in as raw rookies. It's like going back to their draft year, essentially, and we're talking about running a multi-million-dollar organization, and they're not ready to have their hands on the wheel just yet. So I think that there's still an element of PR to all of this, but I also think that Daniel and Henrik are bright enough guys to recognize that that if this is truly what they want, then they're going to jump in with both feet, and they're going to want to learn as much as they can. I'd love to see the Canucks sort of have a little fun with an announcement of this rather than just the standard press release. Like, how about Daniel and Henrik just pop up on our screens next week? We're a week away from the draft lottery. Put them up there as good luck charms maybe for the Canucks turn their fortunes when it comes to the draft lottery. I think there are some ways that you could get creative if you are going to trot them out there and introduce them, but I think it would be fun if they just popped up all of a sudden and, that was sort of the signal to the fan base. This fan base wants something that can give them hope, and I think that, certainly there's so much respect in this market for Daniel and Henrik, but there's also this realization that they're just not ready to, my understanding is that even though they've been at an arm's length from the Canucks, they still watch a ton of hockey. I'm sure they would have opinions on team building and what made the successful teams that they were on work and be effective. But at the same time, if you're going to be a front office manager in the National Hockey League, you have to have knowledge and a recognition of your opponents and their depth charts and other franchises around the league so that you can have input on, scouting and trades and signings and those types of things. And I just don't think that the Twins are up to speed in that regard. Can they get there? Yeah, I think if they apply themselves, and I know that they would. So, I'm all on board for it. I think more voices, informed voices. These guys are sharp hockey guys. But they can only be voices at this point that are added to the mix rather than, the guys you turn to that people think are going to have all the solutions to guide this Vancouver Canuck organization out of the wilderness.
Congrats, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thanks for this.
All right, guys. Have a great show.
You bet. Jeff Paterson,
Thanks,
Canucks
Jeff.
Reporter Supreme.